Great Scott. Great Scott. Great Scott.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a fabulous edition of Great Scott. I'm Scotty V, and it's good to see you. So, the big announcement at San Diego Comic-Con 2013, of course, was that surprise guest Zack Snyder revealed that the sequel to Man of Steel will co-star, have an appearance by, include in some way or another Batman. Are we surprised? I know that I am surprised and yet somehow not surprised. I mean, the announcement itself was surprising. Now, I did watch the footage. I actually have it on my YouTube page at Scotty V on YouTube. Check it out. It's Zack Snyder comes out. Everyone's nuts. Everyone's crazy. They can't wait to hear what announcement about Superman Zack Snyder is going to make. And it ends up that the whole announcement about the Man of Steel sequel is about Batman, which it did give me chills. It was kind of exciting. The way they did it was very dramatic. So it's clear these people understand how to Hollywood it up. They understand how to be dramatic, and it was a dramatic announcement, and it is something that fans have kind of been clamoring for years. We need to see the world's finest on screen. We need to see Batman and Superman in a movie together. And with the rumor out there and the idea that somebody's going to do Justice League someday at some time, some point in our lives before we're all dead, everyone is speculating now that the reason they're doing this Batman-Superman team-up or versus is because they want to prepare us for Justice League. Now, I'm of two schools of thought on this. One is there are plenty of Batman-Superman stories where they are allies, where they are friends, where they work together against a common foe or a common threat, a common enemy. They come together, they use their... Superman has a great intellect, Superman is greatly intelligent, but it depends on the story, and generally, at least these days, for the last 20 years or so, Batman is the best at everything. He's the best at fighting, he's the best at thinking, he's the best at strategy, he can beat every hero, he can beat every enemy, he can do anything he needs to do, even though realistically and logically that could never be. Okay, we're talking about comic books, everyone says, it's a comic book, try not to have your head explode too hard, trying to figure out what's real and what's not. I get that, except that now that we're in the movie world, we have one Batman and Christian Bale who supposedly at this point is not going to be connected to the new movie franchise or any Batman franchise, although he has said he may come back 20 years from now when they're both old, Nolan and he, and do like a Return of Batman or an old Batman training somebody else or something along those lines. Who knows exactly what he's talking about, but he's not supposedly going to be involved in any of the shared universe stuff that's going on. His current Batman days are over. Lots of fans are still hoping that in a World's Finest or in a Justice League movie, we might get to see Christian Bale once again. I, as you know, was not a great fan of what Christian Bale did with the character, didn't like the voice thing. Same writers as Man of Steel, so I guess it's their fault, but the dialogue was bad. And I thought, especially the one I remember most, which was the third one, which I actually liked the best because I thought it had the most emotion and character and feeling, as opposed to none in the other two. I was watching a scene on HBO the other day where Catwoman and he are talking, and I'm out of here once I blow up that wall, so I'm sorry to let you down again. It was just so melodramatic and so over the top and just so bad. I just thought both actors were not very good. So, again, based on a comic book, maybe it's supposed to be that way. Maybe if you look at it, you feel like those types of lines and that type of dialogue and that type of situation is very comic booky. I don't know. And I know that the big touting platform that it was always used was, these are so realistic, you'll feel like this is what it would be if there really was a Batman in today's real world. And I just never felt that. I always felt it was silly and over the top, and that no one in it acted the way anybody would act. Man of Steel, I was very concerned because it was the same creative team other than Zack Snyder. I was pleased And people say, well, that's just because it's Superman and you would have liked it anyway, which is just, you know, I've already said that that's just silly. If it was good, I would like it because it's Superman, and I wanted to like it because it was Superman, but I wanted to like the Batman franchise too, and didn't. While I still love the Michael Keaton Batman, and there's some crazy stuff in that too, but it had more heart, more feel, something about it sat better with me. Anyway, there's a couple of problems with what their announcement, with the situation right now. We've been given very, very little information, and this is done on purpose to hype the speculation, to get people talking about it, to get people upset, to get people excited, to get people worked up in one way or another. Many Superman fans, many Man of Steel fans, for years have been very chagrined to know that Batman has really taken center stage in every project. He has more television shows, cartoon-wise, than any of the other heroes. He was featured the most on Justice League. He saved them probably more times than any other hero. He beat them in books probably many more times than any other. First of all, most of the heroes don't fight amongst themselves as regularly as Superman and Batman often do. Now, Goyer has come out and said, a possible title for this could be Superman versus Batman, or Batman versus Superman. I'm not sure yet. However, the announcement at Comic-Con was that Batman will take a part in the sequel in some way. But Harry Lennox, who played General Swanwick, came up and read a quote from The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, whom I have always said really doesn't understand Superman at all, thinks he is one way, and that way is the way he wrote him in The Dark Knight Returns. He thinks that he's a patsy for the government, truth, justice, and the American way, and that he would do anything that the government said, no matter what. And in this dystopian type future where there are no more superheroes except for Superman, and Batman has retired, and the American government isn't so good or isn't so justice driven, Superman doesn't know it. He's naive, but he's also arrogant and overconfident, and he believes in what he's doing, and he pretty much does whatever the government needs him to do or tells him to do. And I think that that's the way Frank Miller views Superman in any context, modern context as well. And it's clear to me that he's not a great fan of Superman, but like many other of the fanboy creators, Jim Lee, others, Bruce Timm on the cartoon, he is a Batman fan, and he wants to make his Batman gritty and tough and powerful and able to take down Superman. And in The Dark Knight Returns, he does just that, and with his hand around Superman's throat, tells him, I want you to remember in all your private moments, Clark, that I was the one man who could take down the great Man of Steel. That's paraphrasing, but that's the phrase that Harry Lennox read, and it started to get some whoops and some cheers, and by the end of it, there was big cheers, and on the screen, they had the Man of Steel symbol, and behind it, the new Batman symbol that kind of looks like the one on the Enemies and Allies book there behind me, came up behind it in a combination Bat Super symbol, Super Bat symbol, and it was cool, so that kind of got my blood flowing, and it got me excited, and my eyes were a little teary, and I got some chills, and it was cool, and the audience cheered, and it was exciting. My problem here is that they're saying that it's going to be the Man of Steel sequel. If the Man of Steel sequel ends up being The Dark Knight Returns, where Batman hands Superman's butt to him, and then laughs at him, and Superman works for the government in a patsy kind of way, in a naive, stupid way, not only is that wrong for a Superman sequel, but it doesn't work in the universe that has been set up. And they have said they are not adapting it. You know, Snyder said, I poured through comics and I was, in his voice, I poured through comics and I was trying to come up with something that I could use to let you know that, and he has a much better voice than me, so I'm going to have him come up. And so he had Harry Lennox come up and read this. And so what he was saying was, the best thing he could find to give people the chills, to get people excited, and to get people know what was happening with the sequel was to read a quote from a book that paints Superman in a horrible light, in which Batman is the star. So people are speculating, and expectedly, that somehow in the Man of Steel sequel, Batman's going to show up Superman, or at least be co-starring which is just not right for a sequel. It could be Ant-Man. It could be, let's stay within the same universe. It could be a movie about Ambush Bug. If the movie is a starring vehicle for Ambush Bug, another superhero shouldn't come in and be the star or even share top billing. I would be perfectly fine with a World's Finest movie, a Batman-Superman movie, Public Enemies, something along these lines, or a freshly original story that was standalone, that was separate, that was not considered the Man of Steel sequel. What they're talking about doesn't sound like a Man of Steel sequel to me. Jim Lee, I'm not sure how dialed in he is, has talked to the press and said, oh, it's going to be so great, one of my favorite comic book stories, The Dark Knight Returns, finally being brought to light in live action. I never thought it would happen. It's the book that got me into comics in the first place, and I'm so happy to finally see it being brought to the big screen. And that makes me think, does he die? I mean, does he know? Does he know what's going on? Because Snyder has said that they're not adapting that. That was just a phrase that they read to give the idea of what exactly around what was happening in general, and that is that Batman's going to appear in the sequel. Now, Batman appears a la Nick Cage at the end of the movie to say, I want you to be a part of the Justice League Initiative. Something along those lines. Hopefully it doesn't sound like that. That would be fine. You know, that just expands the universe, you know, further implants the idea that we are in a shared universe and lets us know that Batman is there and there might be a Justice League thing. And it also makes sense that Bruce Wayne, the other rich man on the planet, along with the speculative Lex Luthor that everyone is thinking is going to come forward and talk about how dangerous Superman is and how much of a menace this alien threat is, that's perfect Luthor. Even though I still say he's wrong, and these people are wrong who say that Superman was careless and destroyed the city. The city was destroyed and evacuated before Zod and he had his fight. And had Zod and he not had his fight, and had he not done what he did, we would have all cities destroyed. And Metropolis was only destroyed at that one point. If you recognize, the camera pulls back and shows this massive city with giant buildings, bigger than any city on Earth in reality, still fine, and just this one pothole in the middle where the gravity beam from Black Zero destroyed a little bit of the financial district before Superman stopped that. So Superman stopped the destruction and then stopped Zod from causing further destruction. In the process, some empty buildings were damaged or destroyed, but that would have been necessary. Otherwise, every city, every person, every country, the entire world, everywhere would have been destroyed. We'll talk more about this in the months to come, believe me, probably next week as well. Thanks for watching, everybody, and remember, I'm Batman!